Professionals sharing their knowledge, tips, and answers to common questions. It's Ask the Experts on 95.1 The Peak.
And today we check in with our expert, Megan Goodridge. Megan is with The Best You. And Megan, today's topic is, I don't even know if I can pronounce the word properly, but it's hyperpigmentation. How'd I do?
You did great.
Now, what is hyperpigmentation? I didn't even know this existed until just a little while ago.
Right. So hyperpigmentation is something also known as brown spots. It can also be freckling on the skin. So basically anything where there's an increase in melanin production in our skin. So melanin is where the color of our skin comes from. So it's an overproduction of that melanin that usually comes up not throughout the entire face, but more localized in spots.
And as far as a person myself who has tons of freckles, I have noticed as I've been aging, I've been trying to stay out of the sun as much as possible, but underneath my eyes, there's a few spots that are a bit larger than my regular freckle.
Right. Yeah. So that's one factor especially for people that have freckling. As we age, they tend to almost merge together and become larger pigmented spots. So sun exposure will make any sort of pigmentation that you have. I'm sure in the summer, Melanie, you notice that your freckles become darker. And so any hormonal influences as well. So anything that's happening in our body can actually come out on our skin with this form of pigmentation called melasma. And then also, like we mentioned, age, but also any skin injury. So if we have a cut on our skin, sometimes even a little bit of acne scarring can actually turn into more permanent pigmentation over the years with prolonged sun exposure.
I actually have had a girlfriend who used to get it right under on her cheeks, large, like quite large, darker spots compared to the rest of her skin. So do they vary in size?
Yeah, you know what? It's a very individual thing. Lots of times it happens on the cheeks because that is an area that the sun hits. You know, maybe she's wearing sunglasses and they just kind of come up right under there. But across the cheeks, the top of the forehead, even sometimes, like I mentioned with melasma, it can be down the neck, on the upper lip. So it can be throughout the entire face, even on the chest or the backs of the hands is very common as well. Anywhere that's really exposed to sun exposure.
Megan, is it dangerous if you see it on your face? Is this something you should see a doctor about?
No, typically the hyperpigmentation that we're talking about or the brown spots that we're talking about are not harmful. They're not a precursor to skin cancer or anything like that. Although sun exposure can, obviously cause skin cancer, these ones are purely cosmetic that we're talking about today.
So ways to avoid it, basically staying out of the sun?
Yeah, definitely having a sun protection product with at least an SPF 30, reapplying every 2 hours, and even having, products in your makeup and things like that isn't enough. We also have to protect it with that product before we even put makeup on. And then obviously hats, any sort of shade. If you're out, try to keep yourself in the shade as much as possible. And that will kind of be the most preventative things. And then, especially if you're already prone to it, like I mentioned, it will make it darker. So really being protected from those elements.
So you mentioned too that it's not just the sun, it's hormonal influences, it's age, it's injuries. So if you have it, how difficult is it to remove if it's something that you just don't like the way it looks on you?
Right. So it depends on the type of pigmentation. That's why we recommend consultations. Not one treatment is good for everybody. So it can be fairly easy depending on the depth of the pigmentation, and that's something we can kind of assess how long it's been there. So it can be removed easily with, a few laser treatments, or even in some cases it can be lightened with some at-home lightening products. But it is something that can come back because the pigmentation has already been stimulated and overproduced. if you go into the sun, that can come back again. So it's definitely a maintenance type of thing. We can remove it, but we do, it is something you have to keep up with.
So if someone like myself who has freckles, but then they have noticed that hyperpigmentation as larger spots on their skin, for treatment, is that something that would end up, because I don't want to get rid of my freckles?
Right. So in some cases, we can actually do spot treatments. We can actually physically target those more larger clusters, like you mentioned, and treat those specifically and lighten those instead of, I know a lot of people like their freckles, they don't want to get rid of that, so we can target specific spots more so.
Because they also just hide the age spots too, so there's benefits.
Now, does this differ from, as Mel mentioned, age spots? And I've heard the term liver spots. Is this different, or are those things just misnamed?
So they're actually two different things.
Okay.
So liver spots, like you're mentioning, is something that's raised, that's thickened. It's something called seborrheic-keratosis. So it's actually something we call them time-related spots instead of age spots.
Thank you.
So they're time-related. So they're something that will happen regardless. They are not cancerous. In a lot of cases, people think, oh, my husband's got this big brown thing on his back. And he has to get it checked out, and he should get it checked out. But in a lot of cases, this thickening skin is something that is non-harmful and just something that comes with age and experience.
Our bodies do weird things.
Yeah.
They do, for sure.
Well, that's why we have experts like you to talk to. Megan Goodridge is with The Best You Medical Aesthetics. And if folks have some more questions about medical aesthetics in general, or specifically hyperpigmentation, where should they go?
So they can head over to our website, thebestyou.com, or they can also reach out to our Collingwood office, 705-445-1007.